Hi guys, welcome back to Firestorm Games, and in this video we're going to be looking at Shadespire, the new tabletop game from Games Workshop. Now this is a skirmish level game. It's designed to be fast, it's designed to be very quick to pick up, and also competitive as well. Now in this video what we're going to do is we're going to open up this box, we're going to take a look at some of the contents in there, and we're going to be doing our usual building of the miniatures as well. So let's get this box opened and take a look at what's inside. So first of all, we have the Shadespire rulebook. Now this is quite a thick rulebook considering the actual rules are pretty simple, and after reading through this and playing the game myself, kind of a lot of this is just additional detail which kind of helps to clear up some things, rather than actually being rules that you need to memorize and learn. The actual basic core mechanics are quite straightforward. So the first section of the book actually focuses more on the background and history of Shadespire, why the warbands are in there, and these are the warbands that are actually going to be available in Shadespire eventually. So we've got the two in here. We've got the Stormcast Eternals and the Khorne Bloodbound, which are the two that you get in here. And they're also going to be releasing some Aurochs, some Fire Slayers, some Undead, and also some Skaven as well. So we've got the contents page for everything that's in this book. We've got the 3 Stormcast Eternal miniatures and the 5 Bloodbound miniatures. And then we actually start coming into the rules themselves. Now the rules are actually, like I said, very simple and straightforward to learn. The actual rule book itself is designed to make things quite clear, and everything's sequenced out, so you're not having to kind of flick back and forth to find rules for certain things. The initial kind of setups all together, the movement and actions are all together, the attacking and combat, everything's grouped together. And everything's also supplemented with these nice little diagrams and explaining what everything is. So you're going to be pretty much knowing, there's not really going to be any ambiguity with things by after reading through this book. So everything's listed in here, but also, in addition to the the two-player game, we also get some rules for multiplayer games as well, and also some advanced rules for match play and different types of scenario types as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the rule book. In the back we have a very useful glossary, if you can just about see it there. Now this is actually great because in a lot of these rule books, these glossaries are often omitted, and it's so useful to have something like this in the back of the book if you're looking for a particular term that you just look in here, find the word that you're looking for, and it tells you exactly where that's mentioned in the rules further on. In the back here we also have a quick reference page, which is great for kind of just quickly looking at and whilst you're in the middle of an actual game and just trying to find the next sequence of play, for example. So next up we actually have the assembly guide, which is, again, same kind of principle as you would find in most of the other Games Workshop instruction booklets. Everything is numbered, very clear instructions indeed. And finally, we also have a quick start guide. Now this is basically a kind of just a quick way of getting to grips with the combat rules. It uses 4 fighters. It doesn't use any of the actual power or objective cards. It just uses the fighters, so it explains briefly how movement works, how combat works, and also the turn sequence as well. So that's the rules looked at. Let's look at some of the cards that we get in here. So here we have some of the cards that you get in Shadespire. Now you get 2 decks, one for the Stormcast and one for the Khorne Bloodbound. Now you also get a deck of additional cards. I've not opened it just yet, I haven't played enough games, which basically gives you some additional cards that you can use for deck building as well. Now the 2 decks that you have here consist of 3 different types of cards. So I'm just going to be using the Stormcast for this example. So the first set of cards that we actually have are your character cards. Now, these have all the rules for your individual miniatures that you have in the game. At the top we have a picture of the miniature associated, the name. These are the combat values, basically how far the range of the attack, the number of attack dice that you roll, and how much damage they do if you win. You also have a few stats about the person itself, so you've got your movement value, your defense value, basically how many dice you roll, and also what value on the dice you need to score a successful defense, and finally the rules as well. Now, in addition to that, these cards are double-sided, so you have the inspired side. So at the bottom here, you can see this little rule. Basically, if this particular character triggers this rule here, they become inspired, and this often brings along some additional effects, some special rules, and also additional attacks. So we have 3 characters for the Stormcast Eternals, with this Severing guy being the leader of the group. Same goes for the Bloodbound, and in addition to that, we also get 2 different types of card that you make your decks out of. So we have a power deck and also an objective deck. Now, before I explain how these work, I'm going to explain a basic premise of the game. So the way you win is by scoring glory points. And these little tokens, and you can use these tokens for either purchasing upgrades for your characters, which are in the power deck, or you can save them and then use them to defeat your opponents in the end, as the person with the most number of glory tokens wins the game. So the objective tokens basically have conditions, and when those conditions are met, you get the associated number of tokens. So these can be various things like holding objectives, defeating the opponent's leader, having all of your players in the opponent's territory at the end of the turn, things like that. So there's lots of different varied objectives that you can actually use to score things. Now, then we have the power cards, and the power cards are drawn at the beginning of each round. You have about 5 of these, but you can draw additional ones if you want. And these come in a number of different shapes and sizes. First of all, you have these, I can't remember what they're called. I do forget. It's ploys, that's it. So this is the symbol that represents a ploy card. Now, ploy is used at the end of each activation sequence, so you can basically use them to perform additional actions. So some of them allow you to perform reactions to other opponents. Some of them allow you to do additional attacks, for example, Valiant Attack. Other ones that provide bonuses to the attacks that you do. There's another type of card in here you may notice with this little cog symbol. Now these are upgrade cards. And upgrade cards, basically you can use your glory points to pay for them, and you attach them to the associated characters. Some of them are generic and can be attached to any characters, and they give them additional benefits. So you can get extra wounds, extra defense dice, you can even get extra attacks like you see here. So there's actually quite a nice range of different cards here, and this adds an extra tactical depth to the game. Not only do you have to worry about what's actually on the table, you also have to think what is in your opponent's hand. And you also have to build your deck as well to make sure that you have a decent range of cards which allow you to counter your opponents in a number of different situations. So that's the cards themselves. They are really nicely laid out. I quite like the artwork in them as well. It's quite nice to have a card deck for a Games Workshop game as well. So it's a really nice little mechanic that we have for Shadespire. So that's the cards looked at. Let's move on to the tokens and the dice. So here we have some of the various tokens and also dice that you get in this game. Now the dice, first of all, you get 5 white dice and 3 black dice. And the white dice are attack dice, so you basically roll these when you're on the offensive, and these black ones are defense dice. Now these are slightly different in their appearance, so you can see we've got these different symbols on them. We've got hammers, we've got these support symbols, and we've got a double support symbol as well. Critical hits, and also this different type of attack value. So you basically roll your dice, depending on what symbol you've got on your card. This counts as a hit, or this counts as a hit, or this always counts as a hit, and these count as hits if you've got your friendly fighters next to you. Same kind of thing goes for the defense dice, except from you've got, instead of hits, you've got evades, and you've also got shields, you've also got support tokens, and also critical hits as well. So those are the dice. Next up we have the tokens. Now these are all cardstock tokens. So the first ones that we have are objective tokens. So these are basically deployed at the beginning of the game. You set up a number of them, and then you flip them over, and you can each see each one has a number. Now these are pretty much used for objective cards. So some cards will say take and hold objective 5. So this will be objective 5. As long as you've got a fighter at the end on top of this particular token on the board, you get to score a glory point associated with the objective card. Next up we have the various tokens that you get in the game. And I'll briefly explain what these are. So these blue ones are your activation tokens. Each player gets 4 of these at the beginning of each phase, and then when you've expended them, you flip them over, and that just helps you keep track of how many activations each player's had. We have these wound tokens which go on your card whenever your fighter takes a wound. We have these glory tokens, that is an unspent one, and that is a spent one there. We also have these guard tokens, which you basically place them on one of your fighters when they go into guard mode, and it allows them to use both the shields and the evade tokens when they roll a dice to defend. We also have these movement tokens as well. So this is basically if your fighters can only move once per phase. So you basically put this down to say that this particular fighter already moved and he can't move anymore, and this one is to say that he's charged, which basically means he cannot do anything else for the rest of that round. And I think that's pretty much it for the tokens. There are a few additional hexes, such as this Frostfall one for various obstacles, but these cardstock items are actually quite nice and thick. The design on them is quite nice as well. So that's the cards looked at. Let's move on to the game boards themselves. Now the final thing that we have for Shadespire is the actual game mat itself. And this is card, and it's a fold-out card mat. You can see here, if I just flip this out on this hinge, we have this hexagonal board. Now this is actually double-sided as well, so you've got different artwork on the other side, and this is just one of them. You actually get 2 of these in the set, and each one will take the role of a particular starting territory. You can see these items here, they're basically where your fighters can start. We have these different edges as well, so these line up like so. You can join those two edges there, or you can join them up lengthways as well. The card is actually really nice and thick, really sturdy. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is this hinge along the edge there. It's basically just a laminated edge on one side, so I'm not sure how well that'd hold up after lots of game use. Maybe they are pretty sturdy, but the actual details and designs that are printed on these surfaces are really nice as well. It'd be actually really nice to see some people making custom boards using proper scenery and using these items to be incorporated in them. So that's all of the rulebook, cards, tokens, and dice looked at. Let's move on to the miniatures themselves. Now, Shadespire consists of 8 plastic miniatures. 3 of them are Stormcast Eternals, and the remaining 5 are Khorne Blood Reavers, with each of these miniatures having their own unique sculpt. Now, each of these miniatures is very characterful in its pose and also its weaponry as well. For example, the 3 Stormcast Eternals that we get is the leader, who's equipped with a large 2-handed sword. We also get another character who's equipped with a 2-handed hammer. And finally, we also get a female Stormcast Eternal as well. It's actually the second one that we've seen, and that is Angarad Brightshield, and she's equipped with a hammer and a shield. Now, as you can probably see, these miniatures come on 2 different coloured sprues. The blue sprue contains the Stormcast Eternals, whereas the red sprue contains the Khorne Bloodbound. Having these miniatures made out of coloured plastic is an excellent idea, because it means that straight away you can identify which player each fighter belongs to simply by glancing at them. Were they made out of the standard grey plastic, you would probably have to paint them up or at least prime them in order to get the same effect. Another great feature about this kit, which makes Shadespire really accessible, is the fact that all the miniatures are snap fit, which basically means you can assemble them basically by clipping them off the sprue and clipping them together. You don't need any glue whatsoever. This kind of thing is great because it means you can basically take your miniatures off the sprue and get them on the tabletop really quickly. And if you're not an experienced miniature builder, then you don't need to worry about having access to specialist items or equipment. However, if you are a miniature painter and would like to add some paint to them, these miniatures really are extremely well detailed, pretty much the same standard as other Games Workshop kits, so feel free to go ahead and make them look good. And here we have the fully assembled miniatures, and with that it concludes our look at the contents of the Shadespire core set. Now, from what we've seen so far of Shadespire, it's shaping up to be a really interesting game, especially for that skirmish level and also competitive level game. It's great because if you're an existing Age of Sigmar player, you're going to have the interest in the characters and the setting as well. But if you're not actually into Age of Sigmar or don't have time to collect and paint a massive army, you can still enjoy collecting and painting the small amount of miniatures required for playing Shadespire. As a starter set, it's also a great starting point as well. Now, the price point does make it a little bit high for the amount of miniatures you do get in here, but you've got to consider that you also get your rules, your gaming board, your tokens, and also the cards needed to play with these factions as well. Now, the RRP of the set is £40, but it's currently available on the Firestorm Games web store for £34. And I'll include a link in the description below, which will take you directly to the web store, and you can pick up a box of Shadespire for yourself. And with that, we just want to say a huge thank you for watching this video, and we hope to see you again on Firestorm Games.